Hi, I'm Mike Lee with Team Horizon, and this is a Horizon Team Tech Tip. Today I'm going to show you one of the most killer options on the DX9, and that option is the servo sequencing feature. Servo sequencing is the ability to make two or more servos move in sequence rather than in unison for a superb scale effect. There are aftermarket sequencer circuits available, and these are normally an onboard circuit board that connects between the receiver and the servos being sequenced. With the DX9, you can perform this task from the transmitter. So let's jump into it right now. Make sure you have a few more minutes than usual for this Team Tech Tip because this feature takes a little bit more thinking. In this case, we're going to sequence the landing gear with geared doors. My goal is to get the door to open, the retractable landing gear to strut to deploy, and then have the door close up to help reduce the drag caused by the open landing gear bay. In this demo, I've put together a new servo simulator replicating the retract setup. I'm using an E-Flight servoless electric retract for this, and so that will plug directly into the number 5 receiver plug, which is for landing gear. I will then connect the geared door servo to the auxiliary 2 position on the receiver, which normally works from switch H on the DX9. Here we go. Stay tuned. To begin the program, we start at the operational screen and then depress the scroll switch once to get into the functional screen. We now scroll down to the sequencer and depress the scroll switch once. This takes us into page 1 of the sequencer option. From the list position, scroll down to switch number 1. Depress the scroll switch once and you're now in page 2. Here we're going to select our switch that we're going to use to activate. So scroll on over, depress the scroll switch once, and now you may check to see which switch you want to use. You can scroll through if you wish, or you can just activate a switch. In this case, I wanted the switch A, and you see it's a 2-position switch. Switch A is correct, and in my case, I'm going to go ahead and hit the scroll switch once. That locks it on in. You can change the position of the activation either from the left side or the right side, which would be forward or aft on the switch. Same thing with the reverse direction. Notice over here on speed, we have a value out there. This is the number of seconds that the sequence will occur, 7 seconds. You may change the sequence timing in the reverse direction. Maybe you want it to be shorter or longer, but each direction is selectable by you. We're now going to put a name to this sequence. Right now the name A, which is the first servo to move, that will be the gear door. We put in door cycle. Short name is door. And then the second servo to move will be the wheels itself. And short name is wheel. Now we actually get to select a channel. It just so happens that my first channel, which is for the door, is on auxiliary channel 2, which is already selected for me. That's good. If you want to change it, you may scroll through. In my case, auxiliary 2 is correct. Now we're going to scroll down one more and select the second channel that we want to be in the sequence. In this case, the retractable landing gear, which is channel 5. It is there now. So now we're going to go on over to the type of movement we want. Type A is a step movement or a proportional movement. The difference is when it hits the kick point, the servo will move the full distance of travel at one time. If you're in proportional, it will take its time getting from the kick point to a full travel in accordance with your timing that you have. It's a little bit smoother setup. In this case, we're going to switch this to step. I just want them to open and close, and we're going to go to the next page. Okay, first let me explain what this third screen is showing you. The screen provides 2 time sequence monitors, one for each servo operation. In our case, the sequence is operating the gear door and the landing gear deployment. The top monitor is showing the door, and the lower monitor is showing the wheel. Above the monitor is the position of the kick points, as well as down below. These are adjusted by selecting the kick point you wish to move and then changing the position using the time adjustment. You select the kick point here, highlight it, and scroll. Select the time here. For example, if you want kick point 1 to start at 10% after the sequence is triggered, and you have a 10-second sequence, then the sequence will begin at 1 second after activation. 1 is 10% of a 10-second sequence. Inside each monitor box is a line showing the movement of the servo. The top box is showing the gear door servo moving at 100% of the throw programmed in by the servo setup menu. Here you have the line showing the movement of the servo. You first set up the servo to provide the needed control throws in the basic servo setup menu when you install the servo. In the sequencer, you may perform servo throw adjustment or even servo stepping using the kick points and servo movement percentages. In my case, I simply wanted the door to fully open, and so I programmed the servo to move from fully open to fully closed. If I set the servo throw percentage at only 50%, the servo will only move 50% of the travel adjustment set up in the servo setup menu. Notice that between the two boxes there's a time indicator arrow. This shows you which direction the sequence is going and where in the sequence you are. This will help you set the kick point times. Now let's look at the two boxes as a sequence. Starting at 0, the top box shows the gear door opening just after the command switch is activated. Depending on the servo speed, the door should open rapidly. At kick point 2, we can see that the lower wheel box that the retract is activated to deploy. Retracts do not deploy real fast and may take a couple of seconds. That's okay because we have a 7-second sequence running. The gear should be fully deployed by kick point 4, and that's when we see the gear door triggered to close. End of the sequence. Now the above sequence was only to deploy the retracts, so we need to also return the wheels to the wheels up position. Because the landing gear itself takes a couple of seconds to cycle, the timing for the reverse direction may not work. The solution here is to change the kick point for the landing gear so that it triggers at kick point 3 instead of kick point 2, and the door closes behind it at kick point 1. You just mirror the sequence. Note that when you are running through the sequencer, as you reach the end of the sequence, the monitor screen changes to allow you to program the return trip, and now you can set up that sequence. And why are we using a hobby blade to show you the points? Because hobbyists use hobby blades. Okay, so now let's set this up. Right now I've got at kick point 0, the landing gear door is at a value of 100%, meaning it is closed. We're going to open that door up as we come through the kick point 0, scroll on over to 1, and you see that value changed to a minus 100%. The door is fully open at this point. The landing gear has not moved. Now we're going to go to kick point 2. Landing gear is being activated, and you see the door is still at 99% open. As we go through kick point 2, it will kick off the landing gear, and you'll see it changes to a minus 100%. Now it did that starting at 2, gave it plenty of time to completely extend. When it hit to kick point 3, the landing gear door is now commanded to close again, and you can see the minus 100% is going to change to a 100% right there. So it's a complete opposite movement, but that's the end of the sequence. From here, the door opens, the landing gear comes out, the door closes. End of sequence. Okay, so here we are with our servo simulator. It's a rather crude thing. Probably looks a lot worse than what your aircraft actually looks like. But I put this together for you to show what the sequencer looks like when it's working. Right now the gear is down, the door is closed on over the main strut, but here we go with the sequence. How's that? Works perfectly. Now let's go in the opposite direction and put the gear on out. How about that? Works perfectly, and the door closes again. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of trick to make it look a little bit more realistic. We're going to play with the servo speed just to make that door open a little bit more realistic. We're going to go into the function list, servo setup. We're going to go into the servo speed. Press that on off. We're going to go to auxiliary number 2. We're going to set the timing for 1.6 seconds on the gear door. And let's see what happens here. We only set one side of it, so one side should work fast, the other side should work slow. There's the fast side. How's that? Let's try it in the reverse now. Opens up. And it slows down nice and scale-like. There you go, guys. The sequencer and servo speed for realism. Of course, you can sequence other operations besides the landing gear and the doors. It's up to you and your creativity. Note that before you begin working with the sequencer, make sure that you have properly set up the landing gear and the door for the proper fit and motion beforehand. I recommend that you set up the servo endpoints to match the needed movement of the gear door, and that way the sequencer will not cause the servo to move past the intended position and cause damage. Sequencing the servos is just a cool option, and the DX9 makes it so easy to perform. I hope that this Team Tech Tip has been of assistance to you and the enjoyment of your hobby. For Team Horizon, I'm Mike Lee, and this sequence was a Team Tech Tip. Thanks for watching.